I'm actually surprised that you came back after that last lesson. Wow, that was tough. Now this one's reasonably long, but it's not tough at all. There's fairly standard stuff here. You should be fairly confident whipping through this one. It's just some layout stuff. And so what we're going to do is build the footer. There's a couple of small little things around some, dynamic content, but nothing too tricky. So let's get stuck into it. Here we are in Oxygen and we have our footer template open. Now before we get started in building this, let's take a look at the XD file and have a look at what we're actually going to build. Now I've noticed one thing straight away, and that is that the color is different, so I'll need to change this to the right color when we jump back in. But what we're going to build here is essentially these two parts. We've got this main part of the footer and then this real small site credits with stuff like your disclaimers. I am going to change this a little bit here because I'm not building the site with all of these pages. We're just setting up some sample pages. And so rather than creating all of these, I'm going to make this one here like double width and put in the 3 latest blog posts, just the titles. So anyway, let's get started. I'm going to copy this and we'll jump into Oxygen. So the first thing I want to do is actually select this section here, the top one, and change this to the right background color. It was the mid brand color, not the dark brand color. Now the next thing I'm going to do is go to the section below and I'm going to click add and I'm going to put in some text. Now I can select our text and paste it in, and you can see I can change some of this padding here just to bring this all a little bit tighter and just making it feel a little bit more like the design. So I'm just doing this, gauging it by my eye and what I think looks right. Now a couple of things here, a couple of little tricks. With stuff like this, if you're going to reuse this, create a template for example, or reuse this design elsewhere, what you can do is rather than change this every time, is you could put something in like your site title. So we can use some dynamic content here. If we go to insert data, you could go down to say the blog info and put in the site title. And you'll see now that what that's done is grab the word Oxy Agency. And again with this here, rather than using a date that we need to go in every year and change, what we can do is put in some dynamic content for this. So do the same thing, select 2021, go to insert data, but what we want to put in here is the date. So you can go to date, and with your format, you can put in a capital Y and go insert, and you can see what it's doing here is putting in the code for data equals date, and the format is Y, and that means year. So all it's going to display is the year only. If you'd have left this out, it would have said the full date, and we don't want that. So let's click anywhere, and you can see it looks the same as before, but we know that that's dynamic content. All right, let's click save and move on. Now I'm going to go to the section above this, and I'm going to add in a few things here. I'm going to add in a div, and I'm going to add in some columns. So I don't want them inside each other, so I'm going to move this around. I'll drag these columns out, and I've got this div here. So in these columns, I'll work on this first, and we'll go 50-50. In here, we're going to put in our logo, so go to add, and put in an image, browse for the logo file, put that in. Now in here, we need to do a couple of things. We'll put in our heading, so we'll go put in a heading. I'll just check what it actually says. So it says follow us, so I'll copy that, paste it in here, and then I'll put in these social icons. So add, type in social icons. I know I don't need the Twitter, so I can delete that straight away. Now it's just a matter of a little bit of styling. So I know I want this to be circle. I know I want the background color to be white. I want the icons to be blue. And I want the hover to maybe change to something like a green. Yep, perfect. Now I can change the size. I'll drop this down to 30 pixels, and that actually looks pretty good. I'll add some padding on one side, and now I need to style this div a little bit. So if I click the div, and I'll change this layout here from vertical to horizontal, and I'll make sure that this is aligned middle. and that is aligned to the right. Now all I really need to do is some styling for our typography. Put the color in as white and click our heading because we don't want that as a H1. We'll drop that down to say a H4. And I know that the font weight is a lot higher, so I'll put that up to say 600, maybe a little more, to 800. Let's have a look. That's looking a little bit better. I'll click save, and now we can move on to this part here where we're going to put in these blocks of content and the other navigation. So I've got a div set up here. I want to make sure that is 100% wide. So I'll put in 100%, and inside this we want to put some other divs. So let's duplicate this. So I've got a couple. So I've got them next to each other. We don't want them next to each other, so let's do the same thing where we stack this as horizontal. And now they are floating next to each other how we want. Now I'm going to put some classes on these. So this first one, what I'll do is call this footer double. I'll click add class. And this one, I'll give this a name of footer single. Now I want two of each. I'm going to duplicate this one, and then I'll duplicate this one. And this second footer double, I'm going to drag this to the end. So there we go. So I should have footer double, footer single, and then footer double. Now what I can do with this is set this up how I want. So with this footer double, I'm going to actually set this up so that it's, say, 32 pixels wide, 32% wide. And then these ones here, I'm going to make these 18% wide. And that's filling up nicely. So I've got our area here for some text. So we can put out a header and our text. So let's quickly grab this text. In this first one, we'll go add header. And we'll probably want this to be, say, a H4. And we'll put in some text, add text. So I've got our text in there. Now we want to make sure this is white. So we'll go to this div, advanced, typography, change the color to white. Let's have a look at what this header is. So about Oxy Agency. And I think that that heading is still too large. So I'm going to drop that down to a H5. And I do need to change this color here. So I will change that on the heading. And I'm going to give that a little bit of space under here. All right, that's roughly set up. Now I can see something that I need to do on this column above here. This column actually has an underline on it, and it does have some padding. So we'll go to Advanced, click the column, go to Advanced. First thing we'll do is add a border. Make sure we're putting it on the bottom. Make sure it's solid. We can put in our color of white and the width of 1 pixel. Now that white isn't right. That's too bright. We've actually got this dialed back a little bit. So what you can do now is unclick the white, and we'll go to this 100% and pull it down slightly to say 30. And we should have a line that is a lot softer. Now I'm going to want to add some padding and margin to this column. So if we go to size and spacing, give it a margin of, say, 20 pixels at the bottom and a padding of, say, 20 pixels. And that is looking much more like the design. Probably a little bit more space, a little bit more, but getting pretty close. So again, just change that to 30 and 30. All right, that's looking better. Now with the blog post that I'm going to put in here, what I can do is add in a heading. And I'll call this blog posts or latest post. And I'm going to again change this to something more like a H5. Now I can leave this one as white. I'm going to change that to a H6 actually. I'm going to leave it as white, and I'm going to change a couple of things here. with the typography, I want this to be capitalized, or uppercase, sorry, uppercase. I want the font weight to be fairly large, so something like this. And I want to make sure that this is actually Poppins. Now something that I'm going to do while I'm here is actually give this a class. So I'm going to call this footer heading. And that way what's going on is all of the things that I've created, they will be replicated as I create these other ones. Now there is that trick that you may have seen before where we can actually click the styles that we've created from the ID, paste them onto the class, and then you just want to delete them from the ID. So okay, and then make sure that we've got this set to say the H5 or the H6. It was the H6. So I'm going to want to have a little bit of padding underneath this, or margin underneath this, and I'll duplicate this now and put it into our first div and set this up with the same colors. So in advanced, go to typography, the color can be white, and we'll change the name for our services. And with these, now you could set up navigation or menu items and run these as vertical navigations or menu items. What I'm going to do here is just set them up as text links. So if I put a text link in, go to add, text link, I'm going to put it in the services such as web design. And while I'm here, we can put in the link for this. So you can go over to the URL, set this, and find web design, for example, add link. And again, with this, I'm going to create a style of footer link, add a class, and I can do a few things now to this. So for example, I want the text color to be white, and I want the hover color to be green. And I do have, if we go to state and go to after, I do want to change this so that we have that little line underneath it, after the actual link here. So you can see that there's a small little line there, a soft 1 pixel line. So we'll set up an after, we'll go into advanced, background, we'll set a color of white and drop that down to say 30%. And we'll go to size and spacing. Make the width 30 pixels and the height 1 pixel. Then we'll go to layout and make sure that this is set to block. We can see that that's been added, and we just need a little bit of padding now. So if we go to our size and spacing, let's get some padding, some margin above this of say 20 pixels. That's probably too high. Maybe 8 pixels. And then what we can do is add some margin underneath this. Again, maybe 8 pixels. And all I'm going to do now is duplicate all of these buttons and set up both of these tables. So both of these links. So I'm not going to sit here and make you watch all of this. What I'm going to do is quickly pause this and jump back when I've got this set up. Okay, I have all of these set up now, and they look pretty good. The only thing I would really want to change is putting a little bit of padding in here. It all feels a little bit tight. So in this double footer, what I'll do is go to the size and spacing and put some padding in here of say 20 or even 30 pixels. And I could do the same with this single just to make sure everything's got a little bit of spacing here. So size and spacing, and put some padding on this left hand side of say 20 pixels. That's going to ensure that everything's just not so tight and jammed in there. Now if I click save and I open this up in a new window, we should be able to see that that footer is now in our pages and starting to look pretty good. So there's a few things we could tweak, and we will want to tweak the mobile view when we get to that. But let's just check that it's showing up on our inside pages as well. So that's perfect. All right. What we'll do is a quick look in some of these breakpoints, but we'll do a proper thorough look at the footer and the inside template at the end of this module. So we'll have a quick look to see what's going on here. So it's holding together okay at this point, and it starts to break here. So this might be the point where this div, we want to actually change this to be vertical layout. Now with these here, this is again the point where we might want to make this 100% width. Same with these divs here, we would go to 100% width. Now there's a few things that I would change as well. I'd put some padding underneath these, just to spread these out a little bit. And this should hold up now as we get down to smaller and smaller sizes. This is looking fine. Now you can see there's some tweaking that we want to do here, but I'll leave this until we do a final walkthrough on mobile sizes and mobile breakpoints. Click save, and we know that we've done a fair amount of the footer layout. Yes, the footer is done. It's a little bit fiddly, but not too bad. Hopefully you found that fairly easy to do and there wasn't anything tricky for you. So maybe it's time to leave the footer, or maybe it's not. Click complete and we'll find out in the next lesson.